Have you ever met someone who is just almost too nice? The person who is always agreeable, incredibly loyal, always ready to drop everything to help? We tend to praise that. But what if that constant people-pleasing isn't actually a personality trait? What if it's something else entirely? A deeply wired survival instinct. This quote from trauma therapist Dr. Mizelle Martin, man, it just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? It completely reframes how we look at kindness and loyalty, especially when we see it in these really extreme forms. Okay, let's really dive into this. So where's the line? How can we possibly tell the difference? Well, it all starts with understanding a specific trauma response that, honestly, often flies completely under the radar. It's called the Fawn response. This term was coined by therapist Pete Walker, and it's a trauma-driven pattern of people-pleasing. Basically, it's an instinctive attempt to appease or placate someone you perceive as a threat, all to avoid conflict or harm. Right, so we've all heard of fight, flight, or freeze. Those are the big three. But what happens when you can't fight back, you can't run away, and freezing in place won't help you? Polyvagal theory suggests our nervous system has this fourth gear to try and befriend the source of the danger. It's this biological Hail Mary to stay connected and safe, even if it's with the person who's the threat. And this is what it actually looks like in everyday life. Does any of this sound familiar? The constant people-pleasing, avoiding conflict like it's the plague, always saying I'm sorry even when it's not your fault, or feeling like it's your job to manage everyone else's moods, and finding it almost impossible to say no or even figure out what you want. These are the classic signs. And here is the most crucial takeaway from this whole section. This isn't who a person is. It's not their personality. It's what they learned they had to do to get by in an environment where having your own needs or your own opinion was actually dangerous. These are highly practiced, well-rehearsed survival skills. Now, this survival skill often operates inside this very specific, incredibly painful dynamic, something clinicians call a trauma bond or a betrayal bond. A trauma bond is one of the most powerful and, honestly, confusing forces in human relationships. It's this intense attachment that just defies all logic, where someone feels an unshakable sense of loyalty or love for the very person who is hurting them. So how on earth does this happen? It happens through a psychological process called intermittent reinforcement. You have an incident of abuse, which creates fear, but then it's followed by a brief moment of kindness or an apology. That unpredictable reward gives this rush of hope, and it's that very unpredictability that makes the bond so addictive and so incredibly hard to break. This quote from Zelda Lockhart's amazing novel Fifthborn just perfectly captures the mindset that develops. See what's happening there? The responsibility flips. The person being harmed starts to believe that the only control they have is to prevent the abuse by managing the abuser, by fawning. They start blaming themselves. And that's what leads to these behaviors: defending the person who's hurting you, hiding what's really going on, feeling totally addicted to them, and just constantly walking on eggshells, always holding on to the hope that this time they'll change. It feels like an addiction because, as we're about to see, on a chemical level, it pretty much is. To really understand why someone can't just leave a situation like this, we have to go deeper. We have to look at what's happening on a biochemical level right inside the brain. Yeah, this isn't just about emotional confusion or being manipulated. Your actual brain chemistry gets rewired. The intense highs and lows of an abusive relationship can create this powerful biochemical bond that functions a lot like a drug addiction. First up, you've got dopamine, the reward chemical. Your brain releases it when you get a reward. But here's the crazy part. Studies show that dopamine flows even more when the rewards are unpredictable. So the abuser's random, occasional kindness becomes this powerful chemical hit that the brain starts to crave. And then there's oxytocin. We call it the cuddle hormone or the bonding chemical. It's released during affectionate moments, and it creates feelings of trust and attachment. So in an abuse cycle, even tiny moments of kindness or making up after a fight can release this powerful hormone, which just strengthens that confusing connection to the abuser. This slot machine analogy from Psych Central is just perfect. It's exactly right. The person is unwittingly hooked. They keep pulling that lever, hoping for that small payout, that one moment of affection, while completely ignoring the massive losses that are piling up. The unpredictability is the very thing that keeps them playing the game. So let's be absolutely crystal clear here. If you or someone you know is in this situation, it is not a sign of weakness. It is not a failure of character. It is a sign that the brain's fundamental reward and survival systems have been completely hijacked by trauma. Okay, understanding the mechanism is a massive first step. But what about healing? What about the journey out? It's not simple, for sure, but it is absolutely possible. See, recovery goes so much deeper than just learning to say no. It's about fundamentally retraining your nervous system. It's about teaching your body on a deep level that it is finally safe, that you don't need to appease or perform anymore just to survive. And this happens through real, concrete steps. Working with a professional who really gets trauma is a game changer. But so are things you can do yourself, like somatic or body-based practices, things like breath work or grounding techniques that calm the nervous system down. It's about slowly, patiently reconnecting with what you actually want and need, and beginning to believe that your worth is intrinsic, not something you have to earn by serving others. Which brings us full circle, right back to where we started. True kindness comes from a place of choice, from authenticity. It's a genuine expression of care. Fawning, on the other hand, comes from a place of compulsion and fear. It's appeasement that's just disguised as kindness. Ultimately, healing from the fawn response isn't about becoming a different person or fixing some broken part of you. Not at all. It's about unlearning the survival tactics that have kept you silent so that you can finally, maybe for the first time, hear the person you have been all along. The question then is, once the noise of survival finally fades, what does your true voice have to say?